announcement has been paid for by the new Howl order.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs, the bluest of blues, cover it all here. The Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, we talked about this yesterday. Big game coming up in Week 10 on the road at Seattle. Seahawks are 5-3, Washington's 4-5, and this could be a big swing game in the season of the Washington Commanders. And so, I wanted to ask you a question. It's a simple one. We're not going to spend a lot of time here on this particular topic. We spent a lot of time on it last night. I'm just interested in what your answer to this question is. And the question is very simple. What would a win on Sunday on the road at Seattle say to you about this team moving forward, right? And I think the answers are going to end up being wide-ranging. From they don't want an early draft pick, or they're trying to keep Rivera's job, or I could see a lot of crazy answers. I'll go first, and I'll just tell you what it would mean for me. It would say to me, and I would really need to see that coupled with a win, and I'm being greedy here, and I'm getting ahead of myself one at a time, but I would really need to see that coupled with an ass thrashing of the Giants the following week to really have a definitive statement. But I'll just say this. A win on Sunday on the road at Seattle would tell me that they're serious about making a playoff push. And I think it could be different this year. This is the only reason I think, because we got Sam this year. And I know Ronald has been saying this over and over again. It's all about the development of the quarterback. And I'm like, bro, that doesn't even answer the question that was asked of you. But seriously, the difference between us potentially flaming out at the end of the season or actually rising to the occasion, getting it done, winning one or two extra games that we weren't able to do the last 3 years, or the last two in particular, to get us over the hump, to get us to the playoffs, the difference could be the quarterback, right? The difference could be Eric Bieniemy, right? So a win on Sunday at Seattle, getting back to 500, would say to me, oh, y'all serious about trying to make a push for the playoffs. That's what it would say to me. What would it say to you? Leave it down in the comment section. I can't wait to read your comments. You've had some really interesting, because I think this week's topics and this week's shows have been really thought-provoking. And I think a lot of you have left some great comments in the comment section. Even the Chase Young video that I uploaded. At some point, I would love to kind of comb through some of the comments, the best of the best from the week, and just chop it up with you guys about some of the comments that you guys left. Because some of the comments, I didn't leave a comment under it because it was so much that I wanted to say. But I just was like, man, that's a really good comment. Or even if I didn't agree, it was one that I wanted to talk about, right? I wanted to have dialogue surrounding the comment, right? Eventually we'll get to a point where maybe we'll be able to do that, because I found myself really fascinated with some of the answers that you guys left. And I told you, I see everything. I have to be better about liking and loving comments when I read them. I'll read the entire list of comments and don't hit like on any of them. Like, I got to stop doing it. And I can't chastise you guys for not liking the video, and then I go into the comment section, read every single one, and don't like your comment, right? Like, I can't do that. So, I got to be better, right? I can't be a hypocrite. Leave it down in the comment section. Can't wait to read your responses. What would a win on the road at Seattle in Week 10, getting back to 500, say to you about this team and the potential hopes of this season? Or it could be something much broader than that, right? You could be talking about the overall direction of the franchise and this, that, and the third. You could be talking about the draft. You could talk about whatever you want. It could say something different to you, totally different than what it says to the next person or to me, right? Leave it down in the comment section. In other news, I want to start by saying this before I forget. They blessed us with a couple of mic'd ups. Nobody told me, right? Everybody's sending me all of this stuff. Normally you guys are on top of this. Nobody told me that Logan Thomas was mic'd up last week against the Eagles. I didn't know that. I didn't see the team post anything about it. I went and saw the Cam Carroll mic'd up, and I watched that. I enjoyed it. And let me just say this about Cam. He was mic'd up week 9 against the Patriots. He's a leader, right? And we've had a lot of discussions surrounding Cam Carroll. Should he be re-signed? Is he one of those core guys that, moving forward needs to be a part of the solution, guy that just needs to be here? I feel like Cam Carroll is an absolute must re-sign in the offseason. From a leadership standpoint, he's just, again, one of those guys. I told you, everything he does doesn't necessarily show up on the stat sheet. He doesn't necessarily make the most game-changing plays, and that's why I think it could be a difficult re-sign, right? I think this could be a difficult contract negotiation because I think he understands his worth to this team. We've seen what has happened each of the last 2 years when he's been out of the lineup. I think he understands his worth to this football team. Now, again, his worth to this organization will be much different if Ronald Rivera and Jack Del Rio and company aren't here. If those guys are here, then we already know what his worth is. They're not here. It changes drastically, and that's where it gets a little, hazy a bit. Even if they were here, though, I think it might be a tough negotiation because he's going to want to be paid like a top flight safety. They're going to say, hey, you're not making top flight safety plays. But we all know the impact that he has. And I think watching that mic'd up kind of reinforces. He's one of the vocal leaders. He's one of the guys that gets everyone lined up on the field. He's one of those guys that over communicates clarity on the field. He's telling Emmanuel Forbes, back up, back up, back up. He's yelling, I got the 2, 2, 2. I got the 3, 3, 3. He's yelling spaghetti, spaghetti. He's yelling all of these different calls, during the course of the game, getting everybody lined up, making sure everybody's on the same page. Brady, 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 right? And so I don't think this defense, and we've seen this, I don't even need to speculate here. This defense doesn't run as smoothly without him. Period. And and I can't stress this enough, you need guys like Cameron Carroll on your team. It is a necessary thing to have guys like him on your team. Those are what you call core value players. When you look at an example of how we want to do things around here, you point to guys like Cameron Carroll. Leadership on and off the field, right? He's got to be back. And watching that mic'd up kind of reinforces that for me. Then Logan Thomas's mic'd up was pretty cool as well. He was talking a lot of shit on the sidelines in particular. I loved it. And one of the parts that I love was he said something about one of the players, and he said, you know what we call that, right? Because he was cooking them, right? Remember, Logan had a really big game against the Eagles. Caught a touchdown, had a big slant catch, had a catch where he jumped over a guy. Logan was very active in week number 8 against Philadelphia. And so when he caught the touchdown pass, first of all, we haven't heard a lot from Coach Storm. That's the tight ends coach. And so it was good to see his interaction with the tight ends. He tried to dap up Sam. Sam was so locked in on the wristband trying to get the play call that he didn't even see Logan trying to dap him up after that slant that he threw, which was a BB. It was a dart. And Logan was like, yo, good shit, good throw. And Sam's just not paying attention, right? But he said something on the sidelines to Coach Storm, you know what we call that, right? And Rivera comes by, good job, good job, good. He asked Coach Storm again, you know what we call that, right? And then he says it, but they blank it out and they don't, he's like, don't use that. And he looks and he's finding the camera and he looks the other way and he says, do not use it. And they didn't use it. And I want to know what he said. But all in all, it was a really good mic'd up, and just going back to Cam Carroll for a second, I keep trying to, reiterate this to you guys, but college association is much greater than that of the NFL. And you understand why. The attachment to the school that you graduated from that helped you get to the NFL is much greater than any team that you play for at the professional level because your college isn't going to change. You're forever linked to the University of Arkansas if you're Cam Carroll, right? Whereas he could not get re-signed here and end up playing for the Cleveland Browns next year. So you're less likely to get the Commanders logo tattooed on your arm because you could be traded. Axe Montez Sweat and Chase Young, right? Whereas you graduate from a school, you go there for 3-4 years. That's it. It's over. That's the school that helped you become a pro, that changed your life, that helped change your life. So there is a much deeper attachment to the school that you go to. And that's why you see these guys, they're wearing, Mississippi State or Alabama gear still underneath their jerseys. They talk so much trash to other teammates about their school. Like if there's a rivalry like Jahan Dotson with Penn State and Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel with Ohio State, they talk so much because there is a deeper affinity. There's a deeper relationship, and that's a bond that can't be severed, can't be broken. With the school that you went to, and you saw that with Cam Carroll, right? Where he has a play where he hits Hunter Henry in the face on a play, right? And at the end, he's like, yo, my bad, dog, my fault, man. And he's like, woo, pig! That's the saying at Arkansas, right? And then after the game, he goes up to Hunter Henry, and he says, yo, man, you a legend there, right? Like, and he's telling, and Hunter Henry's trying to, like, understand, like, where's all this coming from? And then the light bulb goes off. You talking about Arkansas? He's like, yeah, you a legend there, bro. They talked about you all the time. Like, that's all we heard about was Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry, and he's like, yeah, man. And he dapped him up. And then he realized Cam Carroll must have went to, Arkansas. Because he graduated long before Cam Carroll was at the school. So he didn't know that, that they went to the same university. He knows now, obviously. And so that never, you saw him dap up Dietrich Wise and those guys. They all went to, Arkansas, right? So that's a brotherhood that never, break. That's going to never be broken, right? After games, usually you want to know where's the connection between that guy and that guy. Some random guy on the other sideline, they dapping up talking for like 2-3 minutes after they went to the same school. They might have even went to school together, right? That's a bond that's never broken. Now the Jalen Reagor one is interesting because he went to TCU, and I don't know where the bond and connection is there, but Reagor was like, yo, let me get that jersey after the game. Then Cam goes to give him the jersey, and he's jersey swapping with Antonio Gibson. He's like, bro, what the F? You know what I'm saying? So that was a funny moment as well, but I just wanted to go back to that for a second and continue to reiterate how important the college that you attended is for a lot of these. Your alma mater is something that transcends everything. The NFL, everything. Where you went to school is probably more important to these players than the team they're actually playing for in the NFL, right? So I just wanted to reiterate that, hammer that home. But anyway, those are two good watches. If you haven't already checked it out, shame on you. Shame on me for not knowing that Logan Thomas had one last week, okay? But I was able to clean that up, took a look-see at Cam Carroll's week 9 against New England, and Logan Thomas's from week 8. And then remember, there's Daron Payne, which to me has been the best one thus far from week 6 at Atlanta. If you haven't checked that out, please do yourself a favor. Go ahead and knock all of those out. So enough of that. Let's get to the proceedings this evening. Today's Thursday, which means it's coordinator day. Heard from offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. Heard from defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio. We'll get to what was said there. But before we do that, let's take a look at the injury report. Now, remember, I told you this week was going to be janky, right? Seahawks play on the West Coast. They're not going to turn in their injury information anytime soon. By the time I'm shooting this video, this information won't be privy to me. So what will ultimately happen is we'll have the Thursday participation tomorrow, and then we'll just have to make an assumption as to who will or won't play. What I can tell you is on our side, I know who did and didn't practice. I can't tell you anything about Seattle, so we'll talk about that more tomorrow. We'll really dive into what I think is going to ultimately come about with their injury situation. I've already told you, I think most of these guys are going to play. Jordan Brooks is the one that I'm looking at and saying, okay, he may not go. Everybody else that's on this list for Seattle, I think is going to play on Sunday. So I really don't think you really need to be too concerned. The one key player that is up here that I think has a chance to miss the game, and I don't know the extent of his hamstring injury, is linebacker Jordan Brooks. Everybody else I think is going to play, so you shouldn't really be too concerned with their injury report. As for the good guys, we knew that the first 3 guys on the list, Jonathan Allen, Jahan Dotson, Kendall Fuller, all getting rest for various reasons. Vet rest for Jonathan Allen and Kendall Fuller, and a personal day for Jahan Dotson. All three of those guys were back on the practice field today. There's nothing to see there. Those guys are going to be playing. Barring some kind of unforeseen circumstances, those guys are good. So we don't need to worry about them. It's really about Curtis Samuel and Emmanuel Forbes. Forbes was a full participant yesterday. Forbes was out there again today. So I'm not really paying attention to him either. So it's really just about Curtis Samuel. And he was on the field again today. Now, I believe it was in a limited capacity yet again. Okay? I don't think he was a full participant. I do know that guys that were at practice, John Keim in particular, tweeted out that the portion of practice that the media was able to see, Curtis Samuel was out there. So at a bare minimum, he was limited today. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he was probably limited. He could have been full today for all I know. Just know that he's trending in the right direction. Whether he plays or not this week, doesn't matter. He's going to be back here a lot sooner than I anticipated. So that's a good thing in terms of Curtis Samuel. So this is a really good injury report for us this week thus far. And so we'll talk more about that tomorrow when we acquire more information. But anyway, let's get back to in other news and let's talk about the key pressers from the coordinators. And we'll start with Eric Bieniemy. 13 minutes and some change today from EB. So that's a pretty modest press conference for him. That means he's getting better with, the answers. They're not as long-winded. He's getting to the point and a lot more questions. So when you answer questions effectively and efficiently, the press conference goes quicker and there's more questions that are fired at you. And, for Eric Bieniemy, there's a lot more questions because he's dealing with the young quarterback. So there's always going to be more questions and an offensive line that had struggled up until the last 2 weeks. So there's a lot more questions. What did you see from this group? Why is this better than it was the previous such and such weeks? The upcoming defense you're playing against Seattle, what kind of challenges do they pose? So there's so many different questions. Let's kind of knock down some of the key points that he made during his presser. And obviously you always start with Sam. And he talked about, Sam continuing to grow. They've given him more at the line of scrimmage. And he's like, Sam takes his work home with him. He cares. He's dedicated. He pays attention to the detail, and he said the thing I love about him the most is he's just even keel. And he said this is going to serve him well in Seattle because, EB said, look, this is probably going to be the most loud environment that he's encountered in the NFL. And he said when it's loud like it is in Seattle, everything feels sped up, right? It just feels like everything is kind of moving a little bit faster than normal. So I feel like I got to get the play call in faster. He's got to get to the line of scrimmage faster. He's got to make sure everybody lines up faster. And so there's this need to feel like you've got to hurry and mistakes get made when you get sped up, right? And he's like, I need Sam to continue to be even keel. And he's like, I don't worry about Sam in that regard because he's one of those flat heart rate guys. So I don't really worry about Sam in that regard, but we just got to make sure that we execute properly. And that goes for pre-snap and post-snap. So I feel confident going into this game, but this is going to be a challenge and I want to see how he handles it. It's another step in the maturation of Sam Howell. He also talked about the play that he made to Byron Pringle, where he threw back across his body, which is one of those no, yes type plays. And I loved EB's response to this because he said, look, the fear factor for me has been taken out of those types of plays. I've coached Patrick Mahomes for 5 years. I don't get scared when I see things like that. Patrick Mahomes took that fear out of me. Like, he's essentially saying, it's almost like, I'm not going to use that example. That's too graphic. I'll just say that he's gotten to the point now where he's seen it so many times that he's like, oh, okay, cool, right? And so Mahomes does it all the time, so that doesn't scare him. He sees Sam thrown across his body and he doesn't flinch. And he's like, yeah, that's what those kinds of guys do, right? And, I got a lot of flack for saying that Sam was closer to Patrick Mahomes than he was to Trey Lance. And people tried to say I was saying he was Sam Mahomes and all kinds of nonsense. But again, I'm just telling you, he's closer to Patrick Mahomes than he is Trey Lance. I don't think I need to spell that out any more clearer than I already have. But he said, look, when the play breaks down, good things have a chance to happen. And this is what I've been trying to tell people when we were watching the film with the mob, and I told them, and I told you guys this, I don't want to neuter Sam. I don't want him hunting down incompletions when he can extend and find a guy, right? So many of you are so fixated on not getting sacked. That's cool. I don't want him getting sacked either. But I also don't want him losing what makes him him, which is the ability to make something happen on 3rd and 23, the ability to make something happen on 3rd and 8, the ability to make something happen on 3rd and 7, where he rolls out and hits De'Ami Brown, right? When he rolls out and hits Byron Pringle coming back to the football, right? When he rolls out to his right with a defender bearing down on him and heaves it back across the field where you're not supposed to Byron Pringle, who then picks up a gain of like 30, right? I don't want him to stop doing that, right? I want him, yeah, the interception sucks. He knows better. That's not a byproduct of him trying to, extend the play and that's just trying to do too much. But that's not a byproduct of, hey, don't extend the play. Just throw it away, right? He could have thrown it away. He should have thrown it away. He had ample time to do that. I don't know what he was trying to do there, and he understands I can't do that shit. But the next possession, when he got down there, his first inclination was, let's just throw it away. I don't want him to react that way. Okay, Jahan Dotson was coming across the field wide open. If he just gets out of there and rolls out to his left, he's going to find Dotson potentially for a touchdown. I don't want him hunting incompletions when he can be who he is, which is a playmaker off script. And so EB's like, I just need him to understand that good things can happen when the play breaks down and you go off schedule. And so I don't want him to lose that. EB didn't say that. I'm saying that. And I think EB understands that's a part of who Sam is. Let Sam be great, okay? Let everybody else complain and bitch and moan about sacks and him extending plays. I'm not going to. Be who you are, right? So, he talked about extending plays and Sam, having that extendo clip and how those kinds of plays can happen when you have the skill set that Sam has. He talked about knowing Sam. He's already had this conversation multiple times about knowing Sam prior to coaching him, having intel on him from guys that he knew from back in the day. He played with Natron Means in San Diego with the Chargers, and that was one of the coaches at North Carolina. Remember when he was at the press conference and he talked to Sam, Sam was like, you know Natron? He told him, like, Natron Means. He's like, oh, you coach Natron? He's like, yeah, I played with him. So he already knew Sam, right? He already knew of Sam. He knew what Sam was all about. So he's like, nothing that I was told about Sam was false. He's lived up to the billing, right? I got everything that I was told I was going to get about Sam Howell. And then he talked about John Bates, and he kind of let the cat out of the bag because John Bates apparently is a new father, just had a baby girl. Congratulations. Shout out to John Bates. It's the most beautiful feeling in the world, especially when you have that first one. It changes your life forever. And so congratulations to John Bates. Shout out to 87 on the new birth of his baby girl. And again, it's the most beautiful thing ever. And EB was like, shit, I wasn't supposed to say that. Like, you got to let John decide when he's ready for the world to know. Well, we all know now. Thanks, Eric. But nonetheless, he talked about John Bates. You know what I was saying to myself the other day? It's funny that EB actually brought it up, or somebody had brought it. Really, the question was more about Cole Turner and him getting more snaps the last couple of weeks. Well, it can't be the last because he wasn't even active against the Eagles. But last week, he got on the field. And, EB says, just a blanket statement about Cole Turner. He's working hard. Everybody's working hard, yada, yada, yada. So, again, it was nothing specific to Cole Turner. So, but he did go to John Bates, and he was like, the whole tight end room is a group that works extremely hard. And, Bates is one of those guys that just doesn't get enough credit for what he does. And I was thinking the same thing because when I watch the film every week, there's at least 2 or 3 plays where I go, Bates is wide ass open. I want to see Bates get more opportunities. I'm not the biggest John Bates, throw John Bates the football type of guy. You know that, right? You already know where I stand on John Bates. But you know what John Bates is? John Bates I think he's a TE3 in this league, personally. Right now, he's TE2, and that's the problem, is we just don't have enough athleticism. He should be TE3, but he's a damn good TE3, and I'd like to see him get more opportunities, frankly. Because I think he can be a weapon in the pass game because he's one of those guys that you just forget about. We don't throw him the football a ton. And that's what happens when you're TE3, right? Is that nobody's expecting you to get the ball because rarely does TE3 get the ball thrown to him. He's TE2 and he's not getting the ball thrown to him. So he could be a real weapon for us. But I don't want to throw it to him like we threw it to him on a screen. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to throw John Bates. I mean, we really don't have a tight end right now, unless it's Cole Turner or even Alex Arma. We don't really have a guy that we could throw a screen to at the tight end position that I feel comfortable throwing it to. Because you're not going to get much out of it if it's Logan Thomas or if it's John Bates. But again, if it's Cole Turner, if it's Alex Arma, maybe you can get something out of it. Those two guys are actually athletes, but real good athletes with actual speed, right? Somewhat. But I think Bates is a guy that just does his job, and EB kind of said this, and I thought he said it perfectly. He just goes about it, human-like, does his job, he blocks, he gets his job done, he runs his routes, he's open a lot of times, and he just doesn't get the football. And I'd like to see Bates get a little bit more involved. That's just me. I don't want to see him get involved in the screen game, okay? Like, I want to see him get involved in the opportunities that are there down the field, whether it's a seam ball or it's a little in route, right? I think there are opportunities for him to catch the football and be another weapon in this offense because teams are just falling asleep. And rightfully so. Bates doesn't get a lot of targets. Anyway, shout out to John Bates once again and congratulations on the birth of your baby girl. So that was EB in a nutshell. Thought he had a lot of good things to say. Talked about, the growth of this offense and how everybody's growing and everything's kind of coming together. And, he talked about the Seahawks defense and he said they're fast on defense. It looks like a typical Pete Carroll coach defense. They fly around. He said they don't do anything special, right? Well, you know what you're going to get. Now it's just about out executing them. And he's not wrong. He's absolutely 110% spot on. They don't do anything creative over there. They play their coverages. They'll blitz every now and again, right? But they play their coverages and they get after you with what they do. And either we're going to win or they're going to win. And we got to find a way to out execute them. So we'll see what happens. As far as Jack Del Rio is concerned, this was a long one for Jack. Jack went 8 minutes today, but that's what happens when the conversation is stimulating for Jack. This is something else I got to say about Jack. I like Jack as a guy, right? I like Jack as a coach, like as a guy that I think he's, and you see the interaction, like go watch those mic'd ups and you see Jack on the sideline, especially in week 8 with Logan Thomas when he catches the touchdown pass. Look at Jack coming over and how Jack embraces him and the dialogue that they have. I think Jack's, because he's an ex-player, there's this kind of, it's always different when your coach has played in the league. There's a relationship and a bond there that's forged that you can't replicate if you didn't play in the league, because there's a different type there's a different level of understanding from that coach. He gets it. He's lived it, right? And I think Jack is one of those guys. Even though we talk about his style of, calling games being archaic and things of that nature and his blitz packages, some guys just aren't good at, blitzing, right? They're not good at setting up blitzes. That's just not their thing, right? Jack, and that's Jack. He's one of those guys that he preferred not to blitz. And when he's at his best, the guys up front win and he's able to do some creative things on the back end. That's not the way we're set up. So he's going to be forced to have to maybe come out of his comfort zone a bit. But that's nor here nor there. I actually like Jack. I do. Much like Ron Rivera. I actually like Ronald as a person. There's little quirks here and there that I aren't too keen of. I'm not too fond of. Throwing guys under the bus after they're gone. I don't really, enjoy that part of Ronald's, DNA. But outside of that, I think Ron's a pretty good dude. Same thing with Jack. Problem is, it's a results-based business, and too often we're not getting enough results from Jack. Now, I will say, I told you guys, mistakes were made with Jack in terms of, how he was setting up the defensive line. He's setting those guys up to have an opportunity to win one-on-one. Now, they got to go out and execute. Or he's setting it up for those guys to have a chance to run a clean twist and stunt. And Jack said, look, when they're running quick game all game long, you're not going to hit home. And for the most part, the Patriots did run quick game. But I think that's a cop-out. When somebody says, well, I watched the game and all they did was run quick game. They didn't run quick game every single snap, okay? They ran a lot of quick game. That's like saying that when we played the Eagles in week 8, all we did was run quick game. No, we ran a hell of a lot of quick game. But don't fool yourself into thinking that we didn't drop Sam back. Because when you got routes 30, 40 yards down the field, that's not quick game. You need time for that. The Terry touchdown. You need time for that route to develop. The deep shots that you take, the Patriots took deep shots. Like that one to Jalen Reagor that should have been caught, that's not quick game. So you can't. The wheel route that they ran against Jamin Davis, that's not quick game. Okay? Right? Like, so miss me with this. The fourth down on the first possession that Mac Jones misses, that's not quick game. So you can't just sit here and talk to me as if I'm not watching the film and try to tell me, well, they ran a bunch of quick game. Yeah, they did run a lot of quick game. And that does throw your timing off as a pass rusher. But every pass wasn't quick game. There were opportunities to get to the quarterback, and we didn't get there. There were plays where Mac Jones stood back there, patted the football 2 or 3 times, and then delivered the football. So, again, there were opportunities to get to quarterback, and we just didn't. But there was a lot of quick game, okay? And so, he talked about that. He talked about KJ Henry, and that's why this press conference was 8 minutes long instead of its normal 6 minutes and 56 seconds, just shy of 7 minutes, because that one got him, you could tell that got him hot under his collar, right? And so he wanted to talk about that. When you ask him about scheme and what they're going to do, they tried to slip in a DK Metcalf question, and he was like, does anybody want to answer this for him? Because y'all know what I'm about to say, right? He's not going to answer that. So you got a lot of those questions. This is going to be a 4-minute press conference. But if you talk about something Jack is interested in talking about, he'll talk. And that KJ Henry penalty, you could tell, pissed him off, which it should have, because that's not a penalty. And Cam Carroll, I loved his mic'd up because he was like, bro, what are we doing? Are we not playing football anymore? Like, this is crazy. And so Jack was like, I hope they don't double down and fine him. And he told KJ, I hope they don't fine you. Sometimes the league will double down on their mistake and they'll still send you that FedEx package on Wednesday, Thursday. You'll get that envelope in your locker, and it's bullshit. You didn't do anything wrong. From what I've been told, and I've seen on Nikki Javala, John Kahn, Ben Standing, all kind of reported the same thing, that he wasn't fined. Usually by Thursday, if you're going to be fined, you would have gotten your fine by now. And he hasn't received anything. So good for him. He's not making enough money to be getting fined for some shit that he didn't do, right? So I'm glad the league at least saw fit that they made a mistake and they didn't double down on the mistake, as Jack said. So glad he didn't get fined, but Jack said, I told him, do the exact same thing. Don't do anything different. You didn't do anything wrong, okay? He's like, if there was a teaching tape on what you should do, that's what they would be showing. So you do exactly what you did. And he said, all I ever asked him, Jack sounds like me, right? When it comes to officiating, all I want is just it to be fair. That's it. I don't ask for anything. A lot of people beg for calls. Oh my God, Terry was interfered with early in the game on that deep shot. Sam needs to make a better throw, right? That's my rebuttal to anybody complaining about pass interference. You know why? Because guess what? We got away with a holding on the touchdown run. We got away with a holding on a Sam third down completion to extend the drive. We got away with shit just like they got away with shit. Just call it fair. And for the most part, the Patriots had 4 penalties on the game. We had 4 penalties. That's all I'm looking for. Call it fair. That one is not in that's not baked into what I deem fair, right? Like, that's just a flat out blatant miss. You can't call that, right? Like, you just can't do that. But, the other small little penalties that get missed in the course of the game, they all balance themselves out at the end of the day, most of the time. Not all the time, most of the time. And Jack is like, just make it fair. And I thought the game was fair outside of that call. Like, you took away a turnover. You took away a guy's first career sack and a forced fumble, and it would have been our ball, and they wouldn't have gotten a field goal on that possession. Changes everything. Instead of them needing a field goal to tie at the end of the game, they need a touchdown. Changes everything. But all in all, Jack, same old Jack, Anyway, let's get to behind enemy lines, and let's talk about this upcoming game, Week 10 on the road at Lumen Field against the Seattle Seahawks. The Washington Commanders are 6.5-point underdogs in this game, which is probably the right number. That's right around what we should be on the road at Seattle. They're a 5-3 team. We're a 4-5 team. Neither team has really been super consistent, but they found ways to win. We found ways to lose. So that 6.5 number is probably very representative of the gap between the two teams right now. So I have no issues with the point spread as is right now. We'll see if that thing goes up to 7 or if that thing comes down to 6. I don't see it going any further than that prior to game time. Either that half point will be gone or they'll add to that half point, and I think it's going to be an even number at kickoff. Whether it's 6 or 7, we'll see. But let's talk about the Seahawks and what things that, I think are going to be keys, for this weekend. And again, these things that I talk about today will probably lead into the keys to victory during the game plan tomorrow. So first thing I want to talk about is third downs with the Seahawks on both sides of the football. The Seahawks are 30th in third down defense. The Seahawks are 30th in third down offense. Okay, so let's really dig into that. If you're 30th in third down defense, that means you're having a hard time getting off the field. Okay? If you're 30th in third down offense, that means you're having a hard time staying on the field. So what does that equal to? 31st in time of possession for the Seattle Seahawks this year. You see how that works? If you can't get off the field as a defense on third downs and you can't sustain drives as an offense, you're on the field all the time. Your defense is on the field all the time and your offense is never on the field. That's what it feels like, which is why they're almost dead last in time of possession. That's something we have to take advantage of in this game, is the fact that they don't play complementary football very well, okay? They don't sustain offense, so they're putting their defense on the field, and their defense isn't getting stops to get the offense back on the field, so they're always on the field defensively, which is allowing the opposition to move the football against them. We have to take advantage, and we can't just take advantage of the poorest third down defense or the poorest third down offense. We need to make it count in the red zone. We didn't last week. That's why that game was so close. We were 1 of 4, and it almost cost us. We have to take advantage of a bad third down defense and a bad third down offense in Seattle and allow that to help us not only get off the field on third downs against them, but stay on the field. We've been really good the last 2 weeks on third downs, right? Let's keep that train going against a bad third down defense in the Seattle Seahawks. And then by winning time of possession, you keep our defense off the field, keep our offense on the field, you wear them down, and eventually, hopefully, the dam breaks at some point, and you're able to maybe run away or create a little bit of distance late in the ball game. That's the hope, right? Shorten the game, beat them up, put points up while you're beating them up, and create a little bit of distance. That's what you're hoping to do, okay? So we're 12th in time of possession, conversely. So they're one of the worst teams at 31st in the league in time of possession. We're one of the better teams, top half of the league, okay? 12th overall in time of possession. So if we're converting on third downs, they're going to be in trouble. But we got to make them pay. They're not in trouble if you get in the field goal range and then you miss the field goal. Or you get into the red zone, but you don't come away with the touchdown. They're not in trouble, okay? That's called bend but don't break. We got to break them. And they're very breakable. Okay? We're 16th in the league, so dead smack in the middle. 16th in the league in third down defense right now, getting off the field. So you're talking about a terrible third down offense in Seattle, and you're talking about a top half of the league third down defense in Washington. We've got to flex our muscles on third down in this game, getting them off the field. Okay? This is something I've talked about with the entire league, not just us, not just Seattle, but other teams. Dallas is one of the worst in football in red zone efficiency this year. A lot of teams are struggling from a red zone standpoint this year. Nobody's struggling more so than the New York Jets, but this Seahawks team has been bad in the red zone, okay? They're below average. They're ranked 21st in red zone efficiency, okay? 48% of the time when they're in the red zone, they score. So that's less than 50-50. Okay, so for a reference point, league average is 53%. Okay, when you're in the red zone, league average is 53% of the time you score a touchdown. Now, that average should be a little bit higher. The Jets and their 23%, they skew the average and bring it down tremendously. They're 11 points lower than the next closest team in the league. And I think that's the Giants, if I'm not mistaken, at 34%. So the Jets are killing the average, but 53, the Seahawks at 48 means they're struggling in the red zone. They're below average. Okay. We're at 56%. We're 12th in the league in red zone efficiency. And that's come down. We were in the 60s just a month ago, right? We've had some rough weeks. The Giants game and the game last week were 2 rough weeks for us. We've been a really good red zone team this season for the most part. But we got to be efficient in the red zone. And we got to continue to force Seattle to be one of the worst teams in the red zone if they get in the red zone. They didn't even touch the red zone last week against Baltimore. We're not the Ravens. I'm aware of that, okay? But we got to make sure that we're taking care of the little things in this game, right? And those little things, and Jack talked about this during his presser today. So someone asked him, what's the reason that this defense isn't top 10? A lot of your guys talked about being a top 10 unit before the season started. You talked about wanting to continue what you did last year, but knowing that this is a new season, you wanted to see your guys, build off of what they did last year. Why haven't you been able to do that? And he immediately went straight to explosives. That's the reason right there, explosive plays. He said, last week we gave up 1 explosive through the air, 1 explosive on the ground. And he said we have a goal board, right? A board that they put their goals for the week on every week. And I knew once he said that, I was like, Jack, you should have never told him about this goal board, because he's going to get questions every week about it now. And at the end of his press conference, they said, what else is on the goal board? He's not going to tell you, right? He's like, that's another conversation for another day. He's not going to tell them, okay? That was just his way of getting out of it today. And then next week, he'll have something else that he'll say to them. But he's not going to give them goals, right? That's for the team to know, not for you to know. But he should have never told them. Now they're going to ask him every week. So I hope he understands he just opened up a can of worms. But anyway, he talked about that would meet the criteria of one of the goals that's set is 2 explosives, 1 on the run, 1 on the pass. If we do that every week, we'll be successful, and that'll meet our goals that we set for ourselves. Now he said the 1 explosive on the ground, we don't anticipate it being a 64-yard touchdown run. Because an explosive in the league, everybody defines it differently. For some teams, it's any play over 15 yards. So most teams, it's any play over 20 yards. You're going to give up, a 22-yard play during the course of the game, more likely than not. Not every week, but most weeks you're going to give up one. And you're fine with that. Like one of those a game, hey, we did our job. If that's it, if they got a 23-yard game on a seam ball to the tight end and they don't have another explosive pass the rest of the game, you'll take that. That's essentially what happened in the Patriots game. Is they had the touchdown pass after the fumble by Brian Robinson, and that was really the lone explosive play that they had. They had a couple of nice chunk plays. They had a nice little, over route that they threw to Juju Smith-Schuster, but for the most part, didn't have a lot of big plays in the pass game, right? But that one did hurt us because it was a touchdown, and then the 64-yarder hurt us. He's like, yeah. And just by the way, because I brought this up, I think the other day on the show, somebody left me this long soliloquy about how Jamin Davis was in the right place, and it wasn't him. And I was like, okay, guy. And he left me this long, detailed reason why Jamin was right, and him and Jonathan Allen were the only 2 that were in the right place. And I'm like, bro, you couldn't be more wrong, right? Jack confirmed what we already was told by linebacker Jonathan Vilma, and anybody watching that has any football acumen could see that Jamin Davis was wrong. And then Jack said, and then we didn't cap it. And when he says we didn't cap it, he's talking about Percival Butler. And that's what I said. Those are the 2 culprits there, right? Everybody else did their job perfectly fine. Jamin's got to get over. He can't get picked up by that guard, right? He's got to get over into that gap. But even if Jamin gets somehow picked up, right, and he did, Percy's supposed to cap it. right? Okay, we just made a 14-yard mistake. Let's dead it there. Gain of 16. All right, you tackle him. He falls forward for an additional 2 yards. Let's play football. It can't turn into a 64-yard run. And that's where Percy Butler comes in. And that was on him. He took a poor angle and he missed the tackle, right? So he's like, and Jack said, anytime you give up big plays, usually somebody on the back end in particular didn't do their job, right? Because even if guys up front don't do their job, that's what the secondary is there for, to erase mistakes, right? Things only get out of control and are exacerbated when the secondary is at fault, right? Because, we can run a poor twist and stun up front, or we could blow contain up front, and a quarterback gets out of the pocket on 3rd and 8 and scrambles for 14. Well, it's 14 yards. It sucks. They just converted a 3rd down, but it's only 14 yards, right? When the big plays happen, it's usually because the safety was out of position. He wasn't where he was supposed to be. He was slow to react. He misses the tackle. He takes a poor angle. It's usually something on the back end. Poor communication. Corner thought they were playing cover 2. They were actually playing cover 3. He doesn't carry. And now a guy's running wide open down the sidelines. Right? Somebody in the secondary makes a big boo-boo. Big plays happen. So Jack was like, look, we didn't cap it. We made a mistake. Seattle is one of the best teams in the league. And I kind of, alluded to this yesterday when I talked about DK Metcalf's stats and talking about how he only has 28 catches, but he's got like 400 and, 50, 60, 70 yards receiving. And you're like, damn, that's a pretty healthy average. I'm watching my man Terry over here struggle. He's got 47 catches for 5 and some change. But, that average isn't scaring anybody. DK, on the other hand, is probably averaging like 17, 18, 19 yards a pop over here, right? Shit's crazy. So that's what Seattle is all about, big plays. And what we've been this season is a big play magnet. We give them up like nobody's business. And that's the thing that really scares me in this game is you got a guy in DK Metcalf that can flat out run. A guy in Tyler Lockett that can do the same. A guy in Tyler Lockett that can extend drives. Jackson Smith and Jigba, another guy that can make plays. This is a very daunting task for this secondary that has been a target this season in terms of giving up plays. We should have given up a big one to Jalen Reagor last week, right? I am nervous about their this secondary against that receiving core and their ability to make big plays. One of the points of emphasis has to be to keep Geno Smith in the pocket. John Keim had a tweet today where he talked about the difference between Geno Smith inside the pocket versus outside the pocket. And maybe he just retweeted this from somebody else who had the statistics, but it said something along the lines of Geno, when he's out of the pocket, it's like, 4 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, high completion percentage, really, really accurate. One of the best passers in the league when he gets outside of the pocket. Meanwhile, while he's in the pocket, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, completion percentage comes way down. He's taking a lot more sacks, etc., etc. So the goal has to be keep him in the pocket. I can tell you right now, if they rush the way that they rushed last week, they won't be able to keep him in the pocket. There were a lot of rush lanes available to the quarterback. They just knew Mac Jones wasn't going to take advantage of any of them. So they could do that. You can't do that against Geno Smith. He'll hurt you. So we'll see. There's a lot to chew on here, and we'll really dive into all of this tomorrow when we get to the game plan. But I'll tell you this. Slowly but surely, I'm talking myself into winning this game, but I'm not picking us. I can tell you right now, I'm not picking us to win this game. I don't think we're going to go on the road and win. I'm just telling you right now. While I can see how this could transpire, and the more I dig into the numbers and the more I watch Seattle and I think about what I've seen from them, they haven't been a complete football team since week 3, right? We're in week 10. They haven't been playing good football since the 3rd week of the season, offensively in particular. I'm not afraid of them, but I am aware that they're capable. They're 5-3 for a reason. So the way I see it, we're going to have to go up there and play a brand of football that has eluded us, which is consistent, smart, mistake-free, complimentary football. We've yet to really do that in one game, right? We've done that for portions of games, but we've never done that this season for an entire game. And I think it's going to take an entire game of doing that because they're not Atlanta. They're not New England. They're not Denver. You can't play 2 or 3 quarters against Seattle. They're 5-3 for a reason. You do that, you're going to end up coming up with the short end of the stick like we did against Philadelphia. So we'll see what happens, but the opportunity is definitely there. It exists. But we'll see what happens. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow when we get into the game plan and have our final outcome. For the rest of you, I'll see you for Thursday Night Football overtime. I know. It's nasty. I get it. Bears and Panthers, I probably won't see you for that. But whatever happens, you'll see me tomorrow. No doubt about that. You guys have a good one. Take care.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35.